The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbal.
Well, welcome to it. It's the weekend edition. Is this the weekend open?
See,
you can play the weekend open.
The thing is on the pregame shows we've been doing, I've been doing this intro because it hasn't always been in the morning. And it says the Saturday morning edition of Hail Varsity on that intro. And it's not always right. We are technically in the morning, but I'm like, I've done so many pregame shows that I thought I'd keep consistent with the other shows.
I think somebody wanted to hear voice guy say his name instead of my name. No. I think that's what it was.
Play both. Play the other one.
Let's hear the other one.
The other one too.
We're gonna, if you got it.
Yeah.
If you got it.
Play the other one.
The Hail Varsity Radio Saturday morning show.
Around 30 years.
Strap yourselves in. Here are your hosts.
Yeah. It threw Chris off.
I don't even know he was a virgin until he's 28, and now roll tide.
And Mark Cranack.
Thank you, voice guy. Thank you.
And that foot is me.
Okay. Can I make a confession?
I had to hear my perfect circle this morning at 7:50.
Can I make I have a confession. I do not know. So for the longest time, how many years have we had that intro?
I can go find whenever it was first ingested in the system if you'd like me to.
12 years? Longer?
I think 8.
But it's changed, right? Because there was a couple other brands for a time, right? Yeah. Well, either way, what is that soundbite from? Y'all didn't even know he was a virgin until he was 28. Now
it's from the Roll Tide. It's from the Alabama ESPN.
That's where it's from.
It's from that commercial. Yeah.
I have never.
Really?
I googled it. I signetied it. I looked for it, and I could not.
No, you just say
I could never find it. I've never known this whole time.
The Roll Tide ESPN commercial.
Really?
It might be one of those things where the only way you can find this now is via the Hail Varsity Radio Saturday morning intro, where otherwise it's been lost.
No, it was on Twitter this week, actually.
Okay, never mind.
Was it?
I thought maybe
they brought back old ESPN commercials. And I mean, it's not football or it's not sports. It's a way of life or whatever the pitch or tag was. But it's got, Alabama, probably year 3 or 4 or 5 of the Saban era. And that's everyone's greeting, good, bad, or ugly down in Alabama. You're getting pulled over for speeding. Roll Tide, roll Tide.
Yeah.
But
y'all didn't even know he was a virgin until he was 28.
Roll Tide. And it was the moment at someone was doing a wedding speech. It was the best man speech, and he's now Roll Tide.
I had no idea what that was. And then the other one, the time for someone to put his foot down. That sounds like Leslie Nielsen.
No.
Ish.
It's Dean Wormer from Animal House.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what that is?
That one I knew.
Can I make another confession?
Sure.
Never seen Animal House.
Oh, what?
Never seen it.
Really?
Seen parts, never watched it all the way through. Ever. Yeah. Kind of reminds me of that. You ever see the Family Guy with Peter Griffin where they're all about to die and he wants to admit to everybody that he doesn't like The Godfather?
I saw that episode, yeah. Are you feeling okay, Cranack?
I'm feeling fine. Feeling fine.
Well, how are we feeling about today? Nebraska-Indiana. Were you in Bloomington back in 2016? Did you go?
No, never been. Mm-mm. My brother's there today. He got tickets pretty cheap. Him and his daughter are touring Indiana. She might go there. She's a senior. And he said, they're like 45-yard line behind the Husker bench, 6-7 rows back, and it was like $10 or something a ticket. It was nothing.
That's it.
It's a weird stadium too, isn't it? It's got like a big wall kind of behind one of the end zones, and I don't quite know what to make of them. Have you watched much of them though? I have caught up with some BTN and 60, which is, by the way, if you ever want to just like see who Nebraska's playing next and whatever, like we'll just watch one of those in 60s because it's just every snap back to back, boom, 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 boom. You get a sense for them. Indiana plays hard. That is the one thing, like the one takeaway. Come fourth quarter, I'm telling you, their defensive line really attacks. Really goes takes on offensive line. They deliver the blow. You know what I'm saying? Like regularly. But they don't have great players. That's the other thing. It's there's nobody that jumps out, but together, man, those dudes play hard, and they play hard the whole time. They do have a couple one of the running backs, dude's nuts, man. I mean, he's throwing his knees and elbows everywhere. He's just one of those
Roger
guys.
Craig tribute every carry.
For real. And I don't even know his name. He's probably not even top 50 in the country in terms of rushing yards or whatever, but they go to him in some key moments. And he's just one of those guys. Remember Amir's play against, McNeese State, where he just bounced off 100. That dude will have a couple of those a game. You know what I mean? He's bouncing off people. He's running through people. So good matchup. It'll be fun.
It's Eliason, Justice Eliason, and then you also have Lawton. Both of those guys are pretty good.
Yep.
Kalen Black's averaging 6.3 a carry. I just don't like this matchup. I picked Indiana.
Yeah. What is it about? What about it?
I just don't like Nebraska's offense having
Period.
to either
Period.
No, I love Nebraska's quarterback, and I think there are some good pieces on the offensive line, but when push comes to shove, I don't like the fact they don't have an identity or a go-to.
Yeah,
now, if I'm proven wrong, that'd be really cool for Nebraska.
Maybe the bye week came at a good time, because I agree with you. There isn't they don't really have a pet play.
What are they great at? What can they go outdo you?
I think they need to figure out what they are in the running game specifically. Because I think Dylan has been serviceable. He's been good. The Rutgers game was, I'm putting it to the side because of the weather conditions at Memorial Stadium. Other than that, he's been good for somewhere between 25 and 32 passing attempts per game, probably about a 70% completion percentage, just taking care of the football, picks up first downs. Don't put him super far behind the sticks so that the other team can pin their ears back, get him to third and manageable. And for the most part, he picks up third and manageable. I like that. I just think you need to find out and drill down into what are you as a running team. And I think what goes along with that is who is going to be your guy in the second half of the season. I think having a rotation of running backs is fine, but having a rotation of running backs is different than a running back by committee. And you thought for a little bit, maybe it's Dowdell, and then it's Ramir in the first half of the season. It's Emmett. I think you need to find your guy that you're going to roll with. And I thought for a couple games it was Dowdell, and now I'm not so sure. But I think it's a big game coming off of the bye to kind of to establish that, because I think it is a game where, as I said, Dylan Raiola throws the ball 25 to 32 times. That's what he does about every single game. I think you go jumbo otherwise and kind of try to wear down that Indiana front. So maybe it's a Dowdell game, but I think it's a game where you're going to need a lot of balance. It's something I've talked about a lot this week. And I think the bigger question between the two is probably the rushing attack and the passing attack.
Well, can Nebraska go play like an underdog and just go play loose? Go play loose, let it fly. And if you, God forbid, get into a shootout, can you answer? Can you answer back? I don't have any qualms about Dylan. Now, the Rutgers game, the weather conditions are going to be awesome today, but they may not be the rest of the year in some of these moments. How do you play better in similar conditions moving forward? But Nebraska's got to put the offense, their quarterback, in position to go be successful. Nebraska's wideouts got to go play and dominate today if you're going to ask the quarterback to throw 32 times. And you've got this exhale of relief this week because Indiana plays zone. Well, Indiana's had 2 weeks to try and get better at man because Nebraska's suffered mightily against man defense because no one freaking gets open. And you can't go back to a run game because, well, either they're not hitting the home run or it's too choppy if you're an offensive coordinator to stick with and stay with because it's just not consistent enough. So that's my concern. The defense I feel bad for because they're going to have to go win the football game today. and they're capable of doing it, but it's a hell of an ask with this offense as balanced as it is.
Well, let me ask the question to you, Schmitty. You say the defense has to go win this football game. What does a winning defensive performance look like to you today? What do they need?
You're beating the hell out of the quarterback. He's constantly under pressure.
I don't think that's happening today. I don't think it's happening today. Well, no, I agree with you. That's what it would take. But Indiana's they're a rhythm, quick, get rid of their passing offense.
You get some deflections if they do run it. It's a TFL or a no gain at 2nd and 10, 2nd and 11. You got to take the football away a couple of times and make him hesitate. When it comes to an RPO, if there's no window to throw the football, they've got to tackle. That's so stupid and obvious, but it's true. I mean, Indiana in space. They've killed it this year with yards after catch. I mean, they've got to be B plus A for 4 quarters. And they've got to do it if there typically is a situation where they're getting called upon to come back out on the field because it's been a quick 3 and out for the offense.
By the way, how about Tim in the stream? Schmitty for OC. He wants to make you.
I couldn't do any better. I mean, listen.
We're all coordinators this morning. That's the thing, come on.
We'll get our starting 5 shout outs for the weekend edition, but they've got TFLs, turnovers, and great tackling. That's the rhythm here.
And I also think you got to bow up in the red zone. It's a big one because I think Indiana's going to move the ball in between the 20s. Like that's what they do. With the RPO offense, like kind of the beauty of it is I think they have a guy at quarterback that 9 times out of 10 is going to make the right decision in terms of handoff or throw it into a window that he knows is going to be there. Like RPO is designed, if you have an experienced quarterback like that, yards will be picked up. It's about bowing up in the red zone, tackling well in the red zone. And like the question to me is, does the defense have that chip on their shoulder? They take this one personally because of the way it's been previewed all week long, because everyone's talking about Indiana's offense, not Nebraska's defense. What I know about Nebraska's defense, you see it in Chasing 3 and you kind of hear it, is they're the kind of defense that would take offense to that. The fact that nobody's talking about them this week. You need to see the chip on the shoulder. And to me, it's if you can hold this Indiana offense to say 24 points, which is really, really low, but probably also doable if you're able to bow up in the red zone. It's a game that you really give your offense a chance to win, because what we know about Nebraska's offense, if the wind isn't blowing at 50 miles an hour with 98-degree weather, they're probably going to put up somewhere between 24 and 31 points. That's what they do.
They might.
They worry me. It reminds me of Illinois a little bit. They're not similar in style necessarily, but what they did so well against Nebraska is just kept them off balance, right? It just felt like Nebraska never they were always just kind of a step ahead. And it's like Nebraska was playing catch up when they were on defense versus dictating anything. That's what worries me about Indiana. They're pretty sure about what they are. They're pretty crisp at what they do. Quarterback is, 14 TDs, 2 picks, right? 70+% completion. Yeah, right. Solich, an original Solich recruit, was at Ohio. It's his sixth year. The dude's not going to be worried about anything, Big guy, 6'5". Solid quarterback, man. He's solid. He's solid. I don't know how he projects to the NFL because I don't know if he can make all the throws kind of thing. But in RPO, when it's, he can plant his foot quickly and deliver it quickly. They're like an in rhythm offense that dictates. It's cohesive. Everything makes sense. It's kind of everything that Nebraska isn't offensively right now. Right, you know what I mean? Where everything just kind of builds off.
They can throw it, they can run it, they kill it smooth. Both ways of throwing the football.
They're smooth.
Confident. Here's the thing: like the concern too is, because I do believe this is a really nice progress report for Nebraska today. How do you go perform today? It's not end all be all, right? But you're going into Columbus next week. Do you go in with some momentum?
Top 2 offenses in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
These 2 weeks.
How do you stand up to that as a defense? And do you get help? Do you get help from your offense finally at this point in the season with some consistency? And it's not the quarterback I'm worried about. I'm worried about putting a plan together and being able to answer and adjust when things have to turn the page. So it's really a progress report for me with Nebraska. I think Rule's fantastic, and I think what he's doing with the program's incredible. But is Nebraska ready yet to go get this win on the road?
I love what you said about put a plan together. You're talking about Marcus Satterfield, ultimately, right? So maybe it's not necessarily even only putting the plan together, but then it's in game, like you were saying. Responding.
It's in game for me. His scripts to start ball games out Nebraska's come out flying pretty well on offense, aside from the Purdue game.
But it got me to thinking. Name the offensive game since Rule has been here. Offensive game that you've been like, that was a 4-quarter clinic. That was a solid offensive game plan, execution, all of that. There isn't one. There is.
I will say this
signature offense game for Nebraska.
I will give you a, dear God, you've got to change in the middle of situation, and that's Sims not working out and going with Harburg. I will give Satterfield a hell of a ton of credit a year ago, saying, okay, what's Harburg do? Runs the option.
Some would say a couple possessions too late, but yeah.
but you made the change and you went and did dual threat quarterback, which that isn't his thing. He's a pro style quarterback / OC guy. Okay. That's the offense he wants to run. It didn't zone read option football. Okay. And he made that change to fit his quarterback strengths a year ago. So I give him a ton of credit for that. That's not easy to do.
And look, I'm not trying to kill the guy here.
We're just talking out loud about the elephant being the offense and their production.
Yeah, it's and if you try to think about the signature Nebraska offensive game,
it's got to be. It's Illinois to me right now. Of this body of work, it's Illinois.
What?
Nebraska scored enough points to win that football game.
So, and just to kind of put this in perspective,
hi, folks.
Hey, what's up, Brandon? We're just some quick stats we're pulling up as we're kind of going into Nebraska's offense, and not as a let's tar and feather Satterfield. That's not where we're coming from. It's the long game, right? But like if you try to think of like what is the signature offensive game that Nebraska has played under Rule, now 18 games in, go into the numbers here. Last year, we know what the offense was. It was just survive and advance, right? Their high last year in total yards was 419. That was the only time they went above 400, and that was against La Tech. They were generally upper 200s, low 300s in total yards last year. All right, that's last year, right? Totally different situation. Now you got Raiola. They go for 500 plus against UTEP. Just got their first win last week. And then it's 334, 423 against Northern Iowa, right? 345, 418, 261. So against Power 4 or conference competition and above, they've gone above 400 yards once in 18 games, right? Once against Purdue. Got 418. And so just, Brandon, I guess maybe a good way to kick this off is like compare and contrast the certainty with which Indiana's offense operates with versus Nebraska's, and can a leopard change its spots mid-season after a bye week?
Yeah, good. That's a good way to look at it, I think, to kick things off. Like some of those numbers you just mentioned, I think reflect kind of the reality for Nebraska on offense. Undeniably better. Like they've jumped 30, 40, 50 spots in a lot of statistical categories, which kind of gets them up to about average in a lot of those. I mean, what was the yardage against La Tech? 400 plus. Their best against any opponent. They only scored 28 points in that game, which is another part of the problem of like, if you're going to be sort of range bound, like Nebraska is to a pretty narrow range of like 275 to 400 yards, say, which isn't a lot in today's college football. You got to be really good about converting those yards that you earned into points. And That's been a struggle for Nebraska. I think that's big in this game. I mean, it's big in every game, kind of red zone or inside the opponent 40. But that was one of the areas where uh, Nebraska really strong defensively, Indiana really strong offensively. I was playing around with some charts last night while watching some of the games and just kind of like matching up offense defense things, being like, how do these teams win? Indiana has the best success rate differential in the Big Ten, meaning like they're just kind of machine like. They knock teams off schedule, they stay on schedule. Which to your point about the offense, Mark, Nebraska, how is it winning? It's the havoc rate differential. So it's kind of the counterpart to staying on schedule. Nebraska's ability to avoid those havoc plays, tackles for loss, forced fumbles, passes defended, and its ability to get them defensively puts it in the top 4 in the Big Ten, which the top 3 are Penn State, Oregon, and Ohio State. Like, you can't really argue with that. And Nebraska's right there with them. Indiana's not very far behind in both of those. So when I look at this like biggest picture, it's that for me in this game. Can Nebraska, particularly on defense, can it get those tackles for loss? Can it get those? Can it get an interception or pass breakups? Because also Indiana's completion rate's really high. It's just Indiana's been really machine-like in its first 6 games.
Real quick before one of y'all jump in, just to accentuate the point here with Nebraska, and Walter in the stream is like, yards mean nothing. It's all about points. And kind of half facetious. I get you, Walter, and it's true. But in 18 games, Nebraska has topped 30 points 4 times. Only once against a conference opponent, Purdue. Right?
Purdue last year?
Let me just make sure that's true. Yep, 31-14 last year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which had the blocked kick touchdown, or was it an interception return? Anyway, go ahead.
Last year. Well, good point. Chris, you're on mute, by the way, or we couldn't hear you.
No, I am.
Yeah.
It was a blocked field goal.
So and Nebraska's only got to 40 once against UTEP. So like that's what we're talking about when we talk about the offense. It's whether you're talking about yards or points, Nebraska's not really getting much of either. And if that's how they're going to play, if that's the game, that's fine. But you better be really stellar on defense. You better be Iowa level on defense.
I think that kind of speaks, though, to the risk averse nature that Satterfield had to shift to with all the turnovers last year. Well, that's also, I think, what he is. It's kind of an NFL pro style where, like, if Nebraska gets a lead in a game, they're going to go risk averse offensively and trust their defense. I think that speaks less to Nebraska's lack of offense and more to the fact that Satterfield is avoiding an offensive play call. I think he holds back, which is that what you want from an offensive coordinator? No, not necessarily, but is that the biggest sin? No.
Well, just figure out a way to not absolutely go idle and have 0 drives to put your defense in danger, where it is 3 and out, 5-6 straight possessions like it was against Rutgers. Rutgers should have been put to sleep by the end of the 3rd quarter with 1 more score, and you couldn't do it. And what happens? You gotta reel off 6 plays inside the 5 to keep them out of the end zone. They hit from 50 about 5 minutes later, and it's still a 14-7 ball game. I mean, it doesn't need to be that close of a shave, is my point. We'll see how the offense reacts. You've got a generational talent at quarterback, we think. You've gone to the portal to get some dudes that are difference makers at wide receiver. You've got number 1 tight end in the recruiting class from 4 years ago that's healthy and has right. You've got a bunch of tight ends. You've got Ramir that I think you can wear out Indiana's linebacking core with today. So we'll see.
Mark in the stream coming in with some analysis. Pound sign analysis.
Than they do, we'll have a chance to win.
Only a chance, though, Mark. Only a chance.
I did it. We have to shout out. Rick got in before 6 a.m. Central. Crazy Spider Adventures is in. Elijah's Angry Soup Strainer is in.
One of my favorites.
Pretty good. Walter's been in. NASCAR Eric is here. Mike Corrigan, who's your daddy. Thank you, Mike. Mr. Snitley, Brian Snitley is here. We will no doubt dredge into this, the all whites today for Nebraska.
Is that happening? Are they doing that? I've heard the rumors about it.
Can confirm.
It was confirmed.
Yeah.
It's not been officially confirmed. I can confirm.
Yeah, Bryce is in. Tuck is in. We've got to shout out Jeff Snitley, Black Hills Brennan, Kevin from Texas as well. Our old buddy Clay Collier, the pride of Indiana, Nebraska fan, clearly. He
related to Barry?
That's his son. Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet. Makes sense.
Yeah, but Clay he brought the Elk Creek to Bloomington. I sent you the picture, Elijah. Can we get the Elk Creek on the screen?
What is Elk Creek, by the way? I mean, I know what it is.
From Sandy's, right?
Yeah, right. I know. And it tastes like it's a screwdriver, kind of. But maybe, what is it?
Oh, it's a little more than a screwdriver.
What's in it?
Mostly guarded secret is what it is.
I think
somebody
it's pineapple, orange juice,
town.
vodka, rum. Vogues, do you have any idea what's in Elk Creek?
No, I do not.
Yeah, they're tasty. It's hydrating. It's good.
Wonderful. It's like Five Alive with the old Five Alive stuff you used to get at the grocery store.
Five Alive.
But it's got booze in it. You could set it on fire.
Yeah. Hey, okay. Let's dig into the numbers about rushing offense, because I think everything we're talking about is because of the rushing offense or lack thereof. I don't have their longs up yet in terms of like how many 20-plus yard runs Nebraska has, but I can't imagine it's more than one or two, something like that. I might be making that up. But listen to this. The production this year in the run game, so all games, what do you think Nebraska's average per carry is? No cheating.
No.
Average per carry through 6 games.
Without cheating, it's 3 point something.
They're at 3.9.
Yeah, 3.89. Yep. You're right. Now let's go into conference games. What do you think it is?
3.1.
4.
2.86.
Dear Lord.
Now let's go into FBS teams winning records. What do you think it is? There's 3 of those, 3 games.
They're at 1.9 or 2.
It's 2.67. So running the football against winning teams, which Indiana is, 37 carries per game, 98 yards per game.
Is that with all the sacks in there?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, it would include that. But it's just, no matter how you look at it.
Painting.
Yeah, no matter how you look at it, it's just, you look at it all games and like, okay, it's fair. It's middle of the road. But as you start drilling into, is it conference? Is it when it just gets worse and worse? And it's just, but the issue is they're not breaking any runs. Like there's like a force field at the second level, and like you just can't get past it.
You know why? Because they run into the defender instead of making the defender miss.
I know. Brandon, how do we solve it?
Well, that's the problem with the explosiveness piece of it. Yeah, is I don't know that there's an easy solve. It's a little bit like a Class D basketball team saying we need more dunks, and the assistant being like, "Well, we've got like 2.5 guys who can sometimes dunk a volleyball." Which like it sounds harsh, and I don't like Nebraska's running back room is talented, but in terms of that, just like make you miss, one cut and this thing's going 60 yards. We haven't seen it. So it's tough for me to think that that's just a reflection of like scheme, execution, etc. I think Emmett Johnson remains kind of their best chance for those kind of plays. And we did see him get some increased touches last week. But really, I think it's why, well, the plays have worked too. But like, the jet sweep stuff, the creative stuff to Barty and Bonner in particular, like, it's a way to try and engineer those plays outside of the traditional run game. And I think that's what Nebraska has to do. That said, like those yards per carry numbers are troubling. But one thing about it is like Nebraska has been able, they're ranked 50th in rushing success rate. So they've been a little bit above average. Like if this is just the reality and like the schedule's getting tougher, like those yards per carry numbers probably aren't going up. If they do, Nebraska might be seriously in playoff talk because that would be a huge upset. But if we're going to assume that they're not, um, you got to just kind of find a way to work around it. And I think like functionally, the run game has given them enough. I mean, they got to 5-1 against a schedule that's very comparable to what Indiana has faced. Um, so it just kind of becomes, I think, the reality of the situation halfway through the season. Like I don't know if a major breakout in the run game is very likely. Now that I said that, maybe Nebraska will rush for 300 yards today, and I'll look crazy. But
Well,
fair enough.
it's been a downer of a first 30 minutes this show, Brandon. And that is, I think, somewhat the natural reaction coming off the bye as the team dives into what they need to improve upon. We've spent a week and a half focused on the bad. That's okay. To flip it around, like, how does Nebraska win this football game today? What gives you encouragement with this football game? Because we've spent 30 minutes talking about the bad.
Yeah. The defense, we've talked about it during the week, and it remains the case here a couple hours from game time. Like that's the good on good matchup, and there's not a lot of offenses in the country, although maybe you'll see one next week, where you just be like, Nebraska's fighting uphill here. Like I do not think they're fighting uphill when defensively in this game. It's a level playing field. It's gonna be a fight. And I think if they can knock Indiana off schedule more than they're used to being, if they can force them to have a little bit more, I'm going to say this and then I'm going to walk it back a little bit. If they can force them to deal with a little bit more adversity than they have to this point, like that's how you get into the kind of game that Nebraska wants. That said, if the two games that I went back and watched this week from Indiana were Maryland and Northwestern, and there were struggles for them in that game, particularly Northwestern. Maryland, they turned it over a bunch early on and still came back from that. So it's not like, they just cruised all the way to 6-0, even though the final scores ended up looking that way. Maryland and Northwestern were in those football games with a chance to win. And Nebraska's better than either of those teams. Like when you take all the numbers, like there's some real intriguing matchups when you look at them kind of by specific categories. But broadly, my big takeaway from looking at this over the past 2 weeks is like Indiana and Nebraska are a lot the same. It's just that the Hoosiers are undefeated and happen to be ranked 16th, while Nebraska's on the outside looking in of the ranked team battle.
It's pretty fascinating. Brandon Vogel with us, counterread.com, as we get you ready for Nebraska, Indiana. Weekend edition at the Hail Varsity Radio. Mark Cranack, Elijah Herbold, Chris Schmidt, Brandon Vogel. I look at Cignetti and kind of the hype this week with him and the old ball coach that finally got his crack as a head guy and he was able, because of the portal era, to flip this thing quickly and back up the brashness. I look at Rule and he's been an open book with the plan and the build. Vogue's at this point in time right now. Is it too soon? And we were talking about this before you jumped on. Is it too soon to expect victory for Nebraska in this moment here, halfway home, making the corner turn here after the bye week? Second half of the season kicks off, and you're an underdog. I get it, 6.5 with Nebraska. That being said, You've put some more pieces together with this football team. You yourself have gone portaling on offense. You yourself went and got a difference maker at quarterback while retaining a lot of very, very good defense on top of your coordinator. So I guess why not go get this win if you're Nebraska today?
Yeah, my answer would be it better not be too early to expect that. Like it needs to be. Like this is a huge opportunity for Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
Not to look ahead, but you're on the road at Ohio State. Like that's tough for every team in the country, and it will be tough for Nebraska. And it's not that this one isn't tough because Indiana looks really, really good. That said, you're a 6.5 point underdog figure 2.5
doable.
points for home field. It's maybe Indiana's a field goal better is kind of what that line's saying. And if that's the case, Nebraska has been in some close games this year, or just faced some adversity, I guess, whether they ended up close in the final margin or not outside of Illinois. And it's been able to get it done. So, like, I expect Nebraska to win today. I really do. Like, and it won't surprise me at all if Indiana comes away with it. Like, the opening to this game, and we've talked all week about Indiana hasn't trailed. Well, Nebraska's barely trailed, and it's never trailed by more than a score this season. Like, if it gets wacky early, like, you have the start to the Colorado game where it's touchdown and then turnover touchdown. That's how this one like goes off kind of the most conventional path, I think, for this game. And you can't really account for that. But I expect this to be a pretty back and forth game, and I like Nebraska's ability to hang in defensively. The question becomes kind of back to where we started a little bit with the offense. Can Nebraska continually answer? Because Indiana's gonna put up points. Nebraska's allowing like 12. Indiana's gonna have more than 12 points, I think. So can Nebraska counterpunch when it needs to do that? And if so, I like their ability to come out of this one with a win.
Brandon Vogel with us here, a pregame edition of Hail Varsity Radio as we get you all geared up for Nebraska and Indiana kickoff set for 11 a.m. here at local time. So we're 2.5 hours away, a little more than. And Brandon, whenever you look at this Husker team, I know I tried to flip around and be positive. Can you give me any positives with Nebraska's special teams? Because that, I think Nebraska's offense.
The kicker's got a black shirt.
Well, I know, like, Nebraska's offense, I think we have maybe been too down on here today. Maybe Schmitty disagrees with me on that one. That's fine. I think we maybe have been too down on them considering the guy you have at quarterback. I think
it's lame. Everything's lame.
Nebraska's defense, aside from one performance this year, has been
quarterback is the
problem. Special teams, though, you can reasonably make some. You can raise some complaints. That's what we'll say. You can raise some complaints how the special team is played. Is there any reason for hope of that getting better in your eyes?
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, well, it depends on which segment you're looking at. I mean, kicking is just a place kicking is just a total mystery to me at this point. Like, Alvano's not going to go today. I assume that John Hole being the next up isn't going to be a career, 33% place kicker. If so, then that was a missed evaluation on
where's our NIL if that's the case. Like,
yeah, exactly. And speaking of which, I watch a lot of these like FCS and lower level FBS games. There's just dudes bombing kicks from 48, 50 yards, and I'm just like, man. There are kickers out there, right? Anyway,
and are there snappers getting the ball to the holder too?
Yeah, that's the other piece of it. So those things, like, you've tried two guys at long snapping, you've had to use two guys in place kicking. Like, you just got what you got at this point, and that's a big one in particularly these back 6 games. Like, you're going to need to be able to make field goals. You're going to need to be able to try field goals with some expectation of making them. So that one, I don't know if there's a lot of, this will get better. Bright side, as Schmitty mentioned, Buschini's been mostly good. And he's been an absolute warrior in terms of like what he's given the team. Yeah, he had the bad kick against Illinois, or the bad punt. And there's that piece of it. The other one, like, and this could be a big one. Nebraska's been really close to blocking a punt on multiple occasions. So that's one where I think you get one of those in a game like this. And I would expect Nebraska to have a block punt before the season's over. I mean, maybe it's just one. We're only talking about one play. But so there's some hope there. Kickoff return and punt return, like, I haven't seen much from Nebraska. And his coverage hasn't been quite as good. But those are like such small pieces of it. Until somebody returns a kick or a punt against you, then it's a huge piece. But I'm just kind of like, that's probably going to stay mostly the same. So I think if we bundle that all up, Elijah, no, I don't think it's very probable that we're going to see a massive uptick in special teams.
So one other little inside the numbers thing on Indiana. They've only punted 10 times this year. That's the fewest in all of Division I football. They're tied with somebody out. Miami, I think, is the other one. They don't punt. So I think it's which kind of gets to what Brandon was saying earlier about how machine-like they are. But they're not, at the same time, they're not sort of scary and explosive. They're just relentless and energetic the whole time, right? They're just like, it's just consistent pressure. It's like paper cuts all day, all day long, right? And it's just like, do you have the stamina for that? Do you have the stamina to withstand that? Do you have the discipline? Kind of the discipline and the gumption to be like, oh my God, these guys are going to paper cut the hell out of us all day. Like, are we going to be okay with that? Because I don't see it as something where they're just going to break 10 big plays on Nebraska today, right?
They'll hit a couple. Their opportunity to get over the top that window may have closed a little bit. Elijah, you sent this to me. Pete Thamel, per Matt Rule, expects Tommy Hill to go today. So you got Tommy Hill, you've got Wright, and then that means you can mix and match with what you want to do in the secondary with an extra DB. Maybe Buford moves back and Hartzog gets to watch today.
I don't mind. I like Buford more as a safety than I do a corner. Similar with Hartzog. I like Hartzog better as a safety than a corner. So that might be an upgrade there. There's also Bly Hill coming back. He's got a chance. We haven't seen him yet, but he was a presumed starter, I believe, at corner, and his absence led Buford to go to corner.
Sure,
if I'm not mistaken.
They've cross-trained him, and bottom line is get after the quarterback. We had a comment, Vogues, a little bit ago in the stream about Nebraska's physicality. That kind of goes to the run game, and can Nebraska beat up Indiana on the lines today? And is Mizuka part of that equation? That's another murmur that's going on along with the all whites today.
From
an attitude standpoint, mentality.
From a mentality standpoint, I think that always kind of goes to the most motivated and prepared team, which however people feel about Cignetti, like I do think a lot of his bravado for this season in particular has been, well, we've seen it with Matt Rule, has been button pushing. I think he stepped in and said, this is what this Indiana program, which doesn't have a lot of history as one of the top programs in the country, it's what it needs. So that's the button he pushed, and it's worked. So I think physicality in terms of Nebraska's run game, I think it'll be there. I think they'll keep plugging away. When we talked about the run game, like it's kind of what they can do at this point is like they'll keep handing it to Dowdell, and he'll plow ahead for 3.5, 4 yards, and that's fine if you can mix in. If you can pick up first downs and you can mix in some of the shot plays that you need. I think Nebraska's ability to get big plays in the passing game are pretty key here. The physicality piece, though, for me, really comes in on the other side. In terms of, like, we all know Indiana's passing game and Curtis Rourke and all of that. To Chris's point, I'm confident in Nebraska's ability. I'm more confident now than I was 4 minutes ago in Nebraska's ability to cover these receivers. Like, they'll make catches, and Indiana will spread the ball around, and there'll be a lot of RPO, and it'll be tough. But in terms of just covering, if Nebraska tackles well, I feel okay about its ability to limit this pass game. I think the key to it will actually be limiting the run game. This Indiana O-line might be one of the best in the Big Ten, and it's not very often you get to say that. And they've got a fleet of running backs, the Ninja Turtles, because they're all 5'9", 210, that they'll roll in there, and they're kind of bowling ball guys. 89th in explosiveness. Like, you don't have to worry a ton about the big play with them, but it's kind of what we were talking about with Nebraska. Like, they'll just take 4 yards a pop, and they've been able to get that. Can Nebraska limit that? Because in terms of the defense, that's one of the areas where Nebraska has faded a little bit in terms of it's just raw rushing defense numbers.
Brandon Vogel's with us from Counter Read. Vogues, tell us about Counter Read, what you and Aaron Sorensen got rocking and rolling, and all about today's coverage and beyond.
Yeah, a twice weekly newsletter from myself and Aaron Sorensen. Well, actually, we do about 4 pieces a week. 2 of those are free, so people can try us out and see what it's all about. 2 of them are subscriber exclusive. One of those subscriber exclusives is the big Thursday preview of these games, where I talk about a lot of these things that we've spoken about here. So people can sign up, and even if you sign up for free, you get a 7-day free trial to check out all of the archives. So good opportunity to do that. We had our game day guide go live this morning, and then now that the injury news is rolling in, or the injury updates as mandated by the Big Ten, we'll be kicking off our game day chat, which is also a subscriber exclusive. So we'll get that up and going, and I'm really excited for this game. Like it's been a while since Nebraska's had one exactly like this, where you're obviously facing a good team, but I also think Nebraska's good too. And let's find out what happens.
Yeah, and Brandon, you called it too. After Big Ten Media Days, you were on the Signetti train. I don't think you predicted 6-0 necessarily, or maybe you did.
You said playoff,
but no, you're big on them though. You're just like, hey, look out for Indiana. They got, and here we are, and you were right.
I don't know if I would have been 6-0, and certainly I wouldn't have been a 45% playoff shot coming into today, which I think is what they have, depending on where you look. It's hats off to Coach Siggs.
Yeah.
Vogues, appreciate you, brother. Thank you much. We'll holler next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Brandon.
Good to have Brandon Vogel with us. The Iron Horse, Gary Sharp.
Good morning.
Out of the on deck circle. How we doing?
Good.
It's real quick, Gary. It's grain of salt day though, right? Indiana has played a terrible schedule. Like we know that. Like,
hey! I thought FIU was good, and then they played UTEP. Hey, wait a minute! Nebraska played UTEP and beat UTEP, right? And Indiana played FIU and beat it. Okay.
Yeah, so Nebraska wins by 30 today, I think is what you're trying to say. Listen, yes, Indiana's played a terrible schedule, but they've murdered those teams offensively. Save for Northwestern. That was actually a game midway through the fourth.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, there is the Elk Creeks.
Clay Collier from downtown Bang.
Nice.
Now, the backstory is he worked at Sandy's in college.
So he's got the recipe.
Yeah. And
you have to sign an NDA or something to where you can't.
I don't know if there's omerta or there's blood oath, whatever. The point is he transported it in true bootlegger fashion across state lines.
My man.
1 point. I love it.
Maybe against the law, so we can neither confirm nor deny that that's the case.
Yeah. So good for Clay. DJ Clay giving us a shout out this morning.
I do have a small bone to pick because we talked a lot this week. Our friend Justice, it was his 21st birthday this week. To go back to my 21st birthday, Schmitty, ask if I remember it. One of the most distinctive memories from my 21st birthday was we all went and ordered Elk Creek Waters. And then there was a fight outside, so we went to the windows to go watch, and we set our drinks down. We come back, and the employees had dumped out all our Elk Creek Waters, which was a shame.
Oh,
yeah, they thought we were done with them.
I never hear them called Elk Creek Waters. I'm sure that is the official name. I just always heard Elk Creek.
Just Elk Creek.
Yeah.
It's Bunny's favorite drink on O Street.
Yeah, and we were saying earlier, Gary, it tastes like Five Alive. Chris brought that up.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, you would stop there, then you'd walk across the street and have a fishbowl at Duffy's.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you get in trouble as you walk closer, the other way down the street. Oh yeah, those were great days last week.
And then the next day, you're like, why do I have a headache? You're like, I don't know, maybe because I polished off a fifth worth of alcohol.
What is this tattoo
fish
on
bowls.
my neck?
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
I've gotten some intel that they are taking this game seriously in Bloomington. There's a lot of students that are drinking in the main area where students go in Bloomington this morning. So I don't know. It'd be interesting kind of an atmosphere. I agree with Brandon. I mean, this is kind of cool. It's first of all, it seems like Nebraska hasn't played forever. This has been the longest bye week into a game week that I can recall. But it's kind of, you know what? One of the first stories on game day today was Nebraska-Indiana. It's a big deal. Not a lot of people are talking about Nebraska, but they're talking about Indiana, and good for them. They've earned their ranking. I mean, they're 6-0, schedule aside. Yeah. They're a good story, and I think it's good for the Big Ten that we get more teams that are at the bottom, like invest in football because it makes everybody else better. But it's a big game today. I mean, this is a big game for Nebraska. Is it going to decide their season? No. But I like the eye test to see where Nebraska is and see if they've learned, because 3 weeks ago we were like, wow, Nebraska was Indiana right before Illinois. Remember, everybody in the country was talking about them, and then Nebraska lost, and then they played Purdue and Rutgers, so they've kind of fallen off the radar. But Nebraska's 5-1, right? Nebraska. I like what Elijah said. Yeah. You know, Nebraska's good. Indiana's good. Nebraska's 5-1. It's just they've kind of switched roles. It's like the hot gal of the day has become Indiana, and Nebraska. You know, people went into the divorce proceedings a couple weeks ago, but you know what? Now you can come back, and even though you still might be separated, you can still live in the same house, but just not sleep in the same bed.
So okay, I love the divorce analogy. I love it. So
why do you love the divorce analogy? Huh? Some of us
dreamed of it.
Wow. So, hey, some of us did it. Shut out, Mark. There we go. Boom.
Well, you know the best part. You know why divorce. You know why divorce is so expensive, fellas.
Yeah, it's don't wear that with pride.
Because it's worth it.
Hey, little thing, Coach Brandon in. I started drinking already because Mark entered in with the downers. Is that just a little intervention here, guys? If you don't mind, we do this a lot. You know, we're with each other on a Saturday. Am I the downer guy? Like I just
no.
You know, sometimes you're the last person to know if you have BO, right? Like you don't know that. Everybody else knows it, and then you're the last person to know if you have halitosis. Am I the downer guy? And I need to take some happy pills before we start this thing.
You're just asking out loud the concerns of a lot of Husker Nation. It's okay. You're not downer.
Yeah, Coach Brandon.
And I'm concerned about the offense. But Sharpie, when we get back to the old divorce analogy here
today,
this is a good you've had counseling, presumably, between the Rutgers ball game, that fourth quarter, and today. So things can reconcile is where I'm going. Right. And what gives you hope about reconciliation on the offense today?
Why'd you have to drop in the offense?
Because that needs to be a part of the discussion, right?
It's all on you to find hope in the Nebraska offense.
Well, you got the quarterback, right? You've got hope. It's on the sideline.
Dylan's going to be fine. Dylan's going to have to. The most important part of Dylan today might be between the ears, because is Indiana going to go and play zone man? What are they going to do? They're going to mix some things up against him. You know, this offense. I would love for Nebraska to have an offense where they don't have to keep a running back or a tight end in to help the offensive line, where they had running backs that you say, you know what, we not only need 4 here, but man, can you get us 9? And they're going to go and get you 9. I also want to see the offense have a flow. These are all things that we've been talking about from day one that make us uncomfortable. But I think today, on that side of the ball, Nebraska's stars have to be stars. Okay? If you are considered a star on that offense, it's time to perform. Like Isaiah Nair. Hello. Where are you at? Hello. Last 2 games, 1 reception. Also, upstairs in the booth.
I didn't realize that.
In the booth.
1 reception?
Hello, upstairs in the booth. Where'd the tight ends go? 16 catches over 6 games. Fedoni has never had more than 3 catches for 39 yards in a game. What happened? What all that stuff happened that we talked about at the beginning of the year? Does that come to fruition today because they self-scouted themselves and they said, okay, we saw something we have to do? I think Nebraska to win today, they're going to have to create explosive plays. But another thing, guys, 2 things are important with the offense. I think Nebraska's offensive line is more important than Nebraska's defensive line. And I think Nebraska has to stay on the field offensively. We always say, hey, got to get off the field on defense, man. That 3rd down, boom, get off the field. I think Nebraska needs to stay on the field because I go back to Illinois. There were moments where the defense was struggling, but then they got the ball back to Nebraska on offense, and Nebraska kind of gave it right back to Illinois. You know,
Mhm.
they need to churn some clock, have some drives, and maybe rules philosophy with the offense where they churn clock and they get 4 or 5 yards. Actually, for a road environment, might work out pretty well because you shorten the game. Even though we'd like to say Nebraska could play a track meet, I think Nebraska shortening the game today could be their best advantage.
Gary, I'm just imagining with that scenario you played out with the self-scout, need to get the tight ends more involved. I'm just imagining the entire offensive staff sitting in that new football facility, like looking back and be like, huh, the fans were right. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
But one of the things I've seen from the fans in our stream chat today is that they kind of boil this game down to Jimmies and Joes versus X's and O's, with Nebraska having the Jimmies and the Joes, Indiana having the X's and the O's so far this season. Do you see any truth in that? Do you think this is a game where Nebraska's got the talent advantage, but Indiana so far this year has been successful because of the scheme? Is that fair in your eyes, or is that off the mark?
Well, no, it's the thing I look at Indiana is they've got a very brash and confident head coach, and his team has the same swag.
Mhm.
They believe in what they're doing.
Yep.
They're a good football team that is well coached. And remember, they have 2 coordinators that are under the age of 35. So it's a very young staff. The average age of his coaching staff is 38 years old. I think I like what they have done in terms of scheming up. Like they'll run that RPO, but they're running things that match their personnel. Like they run the RPO with a guy who can see and react pretty quick and a 5th-year guy in Rourke. They've got good pass catchers that can go across the middle. You know, Nebraska's going to have to tackle well today. The linebackers, that second level is going to have to be really good for Nebraska because they're going to try and exploit it with the middle of the field, running some RPO, running some quick game, getting the ball out. So Nebraska's going to have to tackle well in space. I think the other element, I agree with you, Elijah, about the talent compared to the X's and O's. I think one thing that I see with Indiana is Indiana actually might have more guys on their roster that believe they can win and know how to win because they've come from programs that have won. And Nebraska wants to win, but yet they haven't won that game yet in this new mentality of 2024.
That's such a good way of putting it, Gary, because I was trying to explain it earlier. Like when you watch Indiana, their effort level jumps out, right? And it's just and I think that's why. I think you just kind of touched on that's why it happens. So it's not just playing hard. It's just that they totally believe in what they're doing. They're super consistent. They give a consistent level of effort throughout. We're explaining it's almost like paper cuts when you're playing against them. They're just going to keep coming no matter what, and you have to knock them off schedule, and it's not that easy. When you look at Raiola, he has been, I think, better than any of us thought he would be, and I think we thought he'd be pretty good. As he adjusts to the college level, which he's still doing, right? Like it's the 7th game ever in Division I college football. What are areas you want to see him make a step in? We know what he's good at, but Gary, what are the areas you want to see Raiola? Give me 2 or 3 areas that you're like, hey, if he closes this gap, even better.
Yeah, I'll go back to Rutgers. 2 things stood out. Is Dylan has the ability to stretch the field, but I like it when he takes the easy stuff. When he takes the stuff that's in front of him instead of trying to create something deep, because something has happened in the last couple of weeks. Like his deep balls are not as precise as they've been, like on target. And I think one thing is, Nebraska's wide receivers get beat up on the point of contact at the line of scrimmage, and everything is on timing. And then also when that clock in your head starts to tick and you're like, okay, the pocket is starting to collapse, I got to get rid of the ball. I would just like them to see, where Nebraska's been good with him has been between 7 and 15 yards. Nebraska doesn't need to have 30 to 45-yard passes today to win the game. If they can control the middle of the field, where I think Dylan is really good, that would help. I'd also like to see, and it's not necessarily his problem, when that pocket gets dirty, he sticks in there. We saw kind of against Purdue. We saw a little bit more against Rutgers. He got some happy feet. And I'd like him to just hang in there a little bit longer, because if he does, there were a couple of times against Rutgers that I thought if he would have waited maybe even a second and a half longer instead of bailing out, that somebody was coming open that he could have zipped. But there's no doubt he's going to be an important part today. But they need the wide receivers to help him out. Okay. They can't have drop balls. They got to have guys that win battles at the line of scrimmage to get off in man-to-man coverage. And we'll see how much respect Indiana has for Nebraska's passing game early on what they throw at him.
I'm interested with Indiana as much as Rule talked about stunts and twists and all that with the defensive line. If Indiana is going to show you 3 or have a 4th hovering, and Nebraska's communication ability. I mean, Nebraska presumably wants to attack the middle of the field. Well, Indiana's going to send pressure up the middle to try and negate that. Can the offensive line be where they need to be communication wise? Well, with some of these pickups in this environment.
Well, that's why I keep going back. I think Dylan between the ears is most important because I think they're going to give him some pre-snap stuff that, you might see Nebraska. The one thing Nebraska's done really well this year is they get the play into the headset early. So it's not like Nebraska's been scrambling to get to the line of scrimmage and snap the ball. Yeah. They usually have the play call. So this is what I was told during the bye week. In the communication between Satterfield and Raiola, the play is completed with about 20 seconds to go. So you still have 5 seconds of time to be in your ear, but it is giving Dylan plenty of time to process it and then get a good look at what he's looking at. So I think Indiana will do some pre-snap stuff. I think the bigger thing today will be, what do they do at snap? So you could see Dylan communicating a lot more with the offense. I think Ben Scott will be important to pick up checks and stuff at center. And Mazuka is going to play more today, not necessarily as a starter, but I think you'll see him running in and out of the game more often than, kind of like we saw against Rutgers. So they're going to have to work together. This is going to have to be a really good day from headsets to helmets on offense, because I think Indiana will try some things that they've seen, because now there's 6 games of tape of Raiola of what to throw at him that he does well and doesn't do well.
Vic is in.
Vic in the stream.
Beginning to admit that he's never seen Animal House.
I've seen parts, when it's like on. I've just never watched it,
So so the history lesson, right? The Germans bombed Pearl Harbor.
Hell no.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we were taught differently, and then you watched Animal House, and you're like, oh, that makes sense.
I definitely know that line. Yes.
Yeah, shout. No.
The party.
No.
Yeah.
0.0.
God, this is awful.
Sure.
This is awful. Let's go back
to
Blue
Tar.
Let's go back to football. Hey, can I throw
Top Gun multiple times?
That's great. Animal House and Top Gun are a little bit different.
Yeah.
I'm just going to tell you that.
Saying.
Hey,
I've watched some classics multiple times.
You still cry after Goose,
I'd rather you not bring it up, but that's okay.
That's fair.
I thought Mark more into the sand volleyball scene.
Yeah.
Playing with them boys.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. So help me here. I want some meaning behind this, because this is we've all, since this is a bye week and both teams are on a bye week, so we've had plenty of time to just dig through Indiana and Nebraska. Yeah. What does this mean? 3 very, very smart gentlemen. Indiana outscores their opponents 73-0 in the first quarter. Nebraska outscores their opponents 65-3 in the second quarter. And then Indiana has scored 80 of their 285 points in the fourth quarter. What do all of those numbers mean as it applies to today?
It means that Indiana, if they can jump out, they settle in. It's old hat for them. If they jump out and they get into rhythm, they have control, and then they've got to finish and move on you in the fourth quarter, right? With the ability to kind of distance themselves, that what was a 1-score or a 10-point ball game turns into something you can't come back from. So the start sets the tone for Indiana, then they finish you, and away they go. They are really good at distancing themselves. Nebraska's second quarter ability, that continues to kind of put the heat on. What Nebraska's done scoring wise with that 65-3 number is they seize control there of the ball game. And that's what this is to me, man, is about, game control and not letting it go, and then responding if it gets a little shaky.
I would probably say that what those numbers mean, run the ball. Elijah?
I second that.
Well, so if you go back and you look at the Maryland and Northwestern game, Maryland was third quarter, a little bit later in the third quarter, it was 21-21. And then Indiana hit the X button. If you really look at the Northwestern game, man, Northwestern played hard and they did not shoot themselves in the foot. That was a 27-24 game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And it's not like Northwestern was just like, whoa, man, here are the Wildcats. They were just playing really, really hard. And then all of a sudden, bam, Indiana hits the X button and they put a couple scores up and they continue that trend of beating everybody by 2 scores or more. That's a worrisome because we haven't seen Nebraska like execute a 4-minute offense when they need to, where they squeeze the game, bleed the clock, hold on to a lead.
Put it away.
I think they'd be okay in chasing points late. And I base that on how they look at the end of the first half when they go into a 2-minute drill. But I don't know if Nebraska falls behind 7 and it's kicked off to them, you can go, all right, here they go. They're going to get it. It worries me that in the fourth quarter, Indiana's a better finisher than what Nebraska has either had the ability to show or, we just don't know. That's probably the bottom line.
Well, the other thing too is Indiana loves to embarrass people, right? They get you down. They keep kicking you.
Mm-hmm.
All that chip on your shoulder. It took me how many years to be a head college football coach? Signetti angst. He lets his team go take it out on people in that fourth quarter.
Does Nebraska today shorten their participation chart on offense?
Yes.
Or keep it the same?
Nope. And I think they do it on both sides of the ball.
And so, and of course, what we're talking about there is like Nebraska has had a lot of dudes run the ball, a lot of dudes thrown to.
Yeah, you don't need 10 wide receivers, 10 pass catchers.
Is that maybe
find your core? And go.
Yeah. Do we think we see that today though? Do
Yes.
we think it's Nair, it's Banks, it's Barney, and that's kind of it?
I don't care who it is, but just pick the right 4.
Watch for Lloyd's usage today.
Good.
Yeah. Lloyd and Barney are nice. That's a nice lethal combo. Those two guys. That's serious speed. It's tough to cover.
Well, not to mention, this stood out to me watching the first 6 games. The utilization of Jalen Lloyd, considering what he put on tape last year, has been weird to me. The fact that he was the guy that could beat a defense deep last year, he was the guy that with his wheels was causing defenses issues. He hasn't been causing issues for defenses this year.
Because I think they've been counting on Banks and Nair a lot, right? Like those guys have been getting a lot of the snaps.
The gash play is still the leader in the clubhouse is still Lloyd for this offense.
He's so easily overlooked. He was overlooked in his recruiting class, and then I think even when people talk about Nebraska in general, like he's never one of the first guys you mentioned, but he just produces. Like there's no question. I could see Barney getting loose today too, after just going through 6 games of Division I football, now being able to calm down in a bye week and assess and all that. That kid, he could blow up today too.
I would look for him on a kickoff return today.
Nice.
Yeah.
Indiana's pretty good in special teams. Indiana is well coached. I'm impressed. They
just don't have holes.
Yeah, but
obvious ones.
But they do allow kickoff returns, and we'll see if they kick to Barney. Now that would be a mistake, but
Indiana's only kicked 4 field goals this year. By the way, they've only punted 10 times. They've only kicked 4 field goals.
But they haven't had to. What, they've scored touchdowns on 30 of their 37 drives into the red zone.
Yeah, they don't need to punt. And they don't need to settle for field goals.
And they've got 23 rushing touchdowns. I mean, this is a good team that Nebraska is playing today. Nebraska is going to have to play extremely well. It's a game where I wonder, as this whole week is unfolded, and this is outside of the X's and O's. Have you guys sensed something with Rule this week?
Yes.
So the way that he talks. The way that he talks, I think he is talking to his team to remind them, because he said Thursday, this is one of the biggest games they've ever played. I think he's reminding his team that they're going to play in these games, and this is a big, big deal because they overlooked Illinois. They got fat and happy against Illinois. I think they'll be dialed in. But the sense of, you've heard defensive players talk and things you've heard about their 2 weeks of practice where Tommy Hill has been from the jump for 2 weeks working with the ones.
Good.
So he is starting today. So you get really, for the first time this year, Hill and Wright are on the field. So you can move Buford. You can do stuff with Hartzog and Singleton in the back end. But it just seems to me that Rule wants to say it, but he won't out of respect. Guys, we're still 5-1. Everybody's talking about Indiana. We are 5-1. We are a good football team. And this is an opportunity to go prove that we are a good football team. And it's almost like he knows something that they're working on that they have done in the bye week that only he knows and people that have been there. I don't know. He's just kind of like that chip on the shoulder, that underdog mentality. They've really leaned into it this week, and I don't blame them. I was just surprised how deep they've gone with this mentality.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Does it in that way? Does it kind of feel like Colorado week to you?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's kind of go time. I mean, they all know what's out there about, either 2011, 2016, all of those things. Hey, I've seen this before. Now Indiana's the hot team. Nebraska, if you lose today, you're going to lose next week, so you're going to be 5-3. I kind of like that chip on the shoulder. It's led by the defense, and they're going to be. I mean, everybody's going to point to them and go, they're the ones leading the charge today. I don't know. Just an observation I had as this week is unfolded, especially with Rule, on things that he has said, and then he doubled down and said, this might be the biggest game we've ever played.
Is Nebraska going to get the running game? Have they gotten the running game figured out in the bye week? Is it more Emmett, less Dante? Is it more Dante? Is it same that we've seen the rotation that we've seen so far? Is Nebraska just kind of what they are running?
I'll tell you what, if they need to stop being predictable. I mean, whoever's in the game of running back, we can all tell from the 45th row what kind of play they're going to run. Yep. Are they going to run inside zone? Are they going to run outside zone? Are they going to have the threat of throwing to a guy out of the backfield? It's just way too predictable on the personnel that is there. But
I think personnel combined with down and distance.
Yes. Yeah.
What about Harburg? They've for all the talk of Harburg, all the attention he's gotten, all the I think talent that he hasn't actually touched the ball very much. Do you think that changes? Does he figure into the offense a little bit more? Maybe even special teams.
What if I could tell you? What if I added this to this conversation about Harburg? Because I love these conversations. What if it was more Harburg used in the red zone than between the 20s?
Fine, good. Would he be more effective
in the red zone compared to between the 20s?
Yes, absolutely. He's more effective because it's going to jack with a defense with that dual option running attack. I mean, and coaches love it. But when you have the quarterback element in the red zone, it really screws with the defense. So let me see it.
Yeah, and I think I think they're still trying to figure out how to use him because it's not like they have a package for him. Because when he comes into the game, Dillon is still on the field. It's not like, okay, Dillon comes out and Harburg's out there and they run a certain amount of plays. Now, I think they've had him on the field and they've wanted to run some things that they've checked out of, or they've had a penalty where they were going to run. I don't know. I think maybe a little option. So I wonder, and I don't know this. I haven't heard this from anybody that gets to watch practice, but I just think Harburg would be better in the red zone than he is between the 20s right now as you try and figure out what to do with him.
That's fair.
Can we get some jump passes? Can we get some jump passes?
Well, I mean, there's the element. The one thing is, I mean, the field shortens, of course. Is the element of, is he going to run? Is he going to pass?
Mm-hmm. Little tight end.
Because the only thing they have in the game, in the playbook for Dillon running, they have worked on some sprint option with Dillon, but they haven't unloaded that yet. They kind of ran one against Rutgers. And the timing was pretty good, but it just the hole was not hit. So, that would be red zone. You have an element that the quarterback could throw it or he could pass it.
One thing with Harburg that I think we should keep an eye out for, dude's a football player. Maybe watch for him getting some run out on special teams this week. With as much as Nebraska needs help on special teams, dude's a ball player. I know you don't want to injure your backup quarterback on something stupid such as special teams, but watch for that. I think it could be a game where you see him play on special teams just a touch.
Heard that a few places. Are we talking as a returner, punt returner, kick returner? Are we talking about
heard it as a cover
that's trying
guy.
to,
Yeah.
block punts and okay,
No, I've heard it as a cover guy.
cover downfield like on punts. Could see that.
And you know why you can do that? This is on a completely side note. They love their quarterback room. Not just 15. They love what their quarterback room is.
Including the transfer kid out of
Northwest Victory Cigar, Jalen
Gramstad, including him, just because he's
and then
heady
and then Danny Kalin, who has played the role of Curtis Rourke this week.
Well, and look at that, Danny Kalin on the travel roster with 3 games left on a red shirt. We don't have that confirmed.
Doesn't he have all 4 games left on his red shirt?
He hasn't gotten in yet.
Yeah.
So Sharpie, rushing yards. Give me some numbers before we wind her down. And you going wings or steak? It might be one of the last hurrahs to grill today.
We got 5 more things though, Chris.
I got a couple.
Okay. So I'm going. This is a good steak day. Nebraska, if they win this game and they win it going away, they run for 180. Okay. If it is a tension convention, they are between 100 and 120 yards rushing.
Okay.
But they have to, before you can get into a conversation about Nebraska winning this game, they got to get to at least 100 yards rushing.
Yep.
Okay.
Gary, as we go, one more thing here. Nebraska's penalty yardage.
Ribeye or New York strip?
Oh, no, let's not go there yet. No, I want to go Nebraska's penalty yardage. How many penalty yards does Nebraska have today in your eyes? Do they have that cleaned up coming off the bye? Or do we not have to worry about penalties considering Nebraska plays Ohio State next week and the TV partners probably want a 6-1 Nebraska playing Ohio State?
I like where you're going there. Now, remember, last year, Nebraska was really penalized heavily at the beginning of the year, and then it changed to the second half of the season. 63 penalty yards today.
Oddly specific. I like it.
So 7, huh? All right, 7 or 8. Okay.
But here, I mean, we have to be honest about this. We'll see who the crew is. Are they going to let the wide receivers and the defensive backs beat the crap out of each other today? Because it is so inconsistent across the board. If you watched, for example, like Nebraska-Purdue, now a lot of those DPIs on Purdue were legit, but they called, if you breathed on a guy, they were like, boom. But if, then you go to the Oregon-Ohio State game, they were just hammering on each other, and they just let them play. Are they going to let them play downfield? Because perimeter blocking is going to be so huge on both sides today. If they let guys lock each other up and they don't call anything, that's advantage for Nebraska. But if Nebraska gets downfield for perimeter blocking and they start calling everything, whether it's right or wrong, that's not good for Nebraska.
Penalties, by the way, Indiana was pretty bad against UCLA, had 14 in that game. So that must have been, who knows about that crew. But they've cleaned it up since, just 3, 4, and 3 last 3 games. So
Sharpie
played pretty clean.
This win would absolutely energize the fan base. The fan base is happy that things are 5-1. They're happy about the quarterback. They like the defense, but they want to see some progress on the offensive side of the football. You get out of Dodge today with a win, kind of springboards things back from an excitement level.
I think these are the 2 toughest games that Nebraska has remaining because of the dynamics of the opponent and where it sits on your schedule.
Yeah.
Did Oregon expose? Go ahead.
Sorry. This would be a very, very good win for Nebraska. Not only bowl eligible, erase those things, but it also would show you that you are moving forward in year 2 of Matt Rule, because you have to start to win these kind of games, guys.
Nebraska's going all white uniforms today, and for fans of a certain age, that's a no-no. Just don't do it because that's Marv Seiler, Iowa State. You can't.
Yeah, if you're in your 50s and 60s, your 50s and 60s, you believe that the color of the uniform impacts the game.
Right.
But if you're in your 20s, you've been rooting for the all-white uniforms to come back.
Hence the Northwestern white matted uniforms. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think Nebraska is actually 2-1 in their most recent all-white uniform game, because Fresno
won in all whites in 16 at Indiana, didn't they? Or did they wear the red bottoms?
They had the red bottoms that game.
Yeah, yes, but no. So it was the bowl game against
Georgia Tech.
Holiday Bowl, they wore the all whites.
No, I'm talking.
Well, yeah,
recently.
against Georgia Tech in the Citrus Bowl, they wore all white.
They wore them in
that
the
was
Holiday
that was
Bowl.
the end of one of the worst seasons ever for Nebraska because they quit in that game.
But they wore all white against USC.
Yes, they
That
did.
That
bowl
was a
game,
shootout, 45-42.
They wore all whites at Fresno,
Yep.
That was
right?
probably their last win.
and then they
All
wore all
whites.
whites at Northwestern with the alternate
Yep.
uniforms.
Yeah.
So 2-1 in their last. I believe those are the last 3 all whites.
Didn't they wear all whites at Minnesota one time? Was that the when Newbie had the
that
big
was
game?
that was an
hoodie day?
annihilation, wasn't it?
Was that hoodie
I
day?
thought that's when Newbie had a big game up there.
That was Riley era. Yeah,
Oh,
Newbie
yeah,
fumbled.
But Frost never wore the all whites because he was anti all white uniforms. That hoodie gate was not all white uniforms.
So what the speculation is, Indiana, because it's homecoming and it's a big stage, they're wearing all red. So Nebraska's gone all white. Is that the speculation?
Yeah.
Could be. And is it? How do Nebraska fans differentiate themselves today? It's different shades of red. You know, let's be honest here.
I can see it, but hey, I'm not going to poo-poo. If you're a little bit older, you are still stained by the 80s when they were all red against Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Hey, I wouldn't be surprised.
That's the last time Nebraska's done that.
Now, remember, I wouldn't be surprised if there maybe is an all red down the road.
Matt Rule loves the all red look.
And Nebraska is not doing alternates for a couple of years, reportedly.
But wasn't that a Trev decision? He just didn't want the alternates? Or is that a rule thing?
Trev was in Iowa, was in Ames that day. So Trev.
Yeah,
fair.
Trev just didn't like black.
Trev could not catch Marv Seiler either.
No,
right? No one could.
No.
Marv Seiler was running a 4.140 that day.
Why are we bringing that game up? Let's just move on from that game.
There's a lot of wind in his back.
Why can't we talk about the fact that Indiana and Nebraska hardly ever play? I mean, 2016, last time Nebraska was in Bloomington.
Because Nebraska sued the Big Ten, and the Big Ten gave them hard schedules every single year, and Indiana didn't fall on that list. And whenever they did, they had Walt Fillier go for 200 yards because of the disrespect.
Is that the least played? Is that the least played opponent that Nebraska has?
Yeah, I think Nebraska and Maryland. Nebraska hasn't played Maryland very often.
Like twice.
Nebraska has played Rutgers more than they played Indiana.
Wow, that's true. Huh.
By 2, right? They've only played Indiana.
Is it me?
They went there in 16, and then remember the injury gate game where Indiana was faking injuries in Lincoln? Was that 19?
19, yeah.
I want to see more.
19 that was the Walt Fillier game. I'll never forget that game because that dude went crazy on Nebraska, and it's a name I'll never forget because of that. Great name, by the way.
I want to see more Penn State on the schedule, by the way. That's been a really good series.
Vintage all whites today.
That's been a really good series, but Nebraska doesn't play Penn State hardly ever either. What is 4 times maybe in the Big Ten?
Nebraska, they played Penn State.
I think Nebraska split.
The last time Nebraska won a game on the road against a ranked team, 2011 in State College, and that weird day.
Can you say that again? Hold on.
It's 2011. The last road ranked win for Nebraska was post Sandusky scandal.
Oh my God!
That Saturday.
Yep.
That's
it was
the last
David
road ranked win.
Yeah, Mark. If you just Google when Signetti says Google me, you can Google Nebraska's got long streaks that could be broken today.
I've seen some of those, and like one of them is a personal one for Rule, where it's like, is it? Did I hear that right? Like he hasn't beat a top 25 team, just like ever.
Who
is that?
Rule once.
He's 3-20.
3-20. Okay. Against ranked teams. Period.
Yeah. Now to his credit, he's not been at a gig long enough to kind of even that out.
Right. And he's at Temple and Baylor. I mean,
was it one win against a team that finished the year in the top 25? Is that it?
Well, it's 2 today, Elijah.
We'll see.
All right. Predictions. I say Indiana 34-21. Kranak, what say you as we wind it down?
Is it cheating to just copy paste what you just said?
No.
Okay. I lean towards Indiana.
Well,
also.
but not well enough.
I lean towards Indiana as well. 31-28.
I've been consistent with this all week at 35-27 Nebraska. Nebraska does well in the red zone. I think the defense sets up the offense for one, if not a defensive touchdown. 35-27, Huskers win.
I have stuck with this because I think 2 weeks to prepare defensively. Tony White will have his team ready to play. And this will be the most dynamic offense that Tony White has coordinated against since he's been at Nebraska. Colorado had a passing game, but they never had a threat to run the ball. This is the most difficult offense that Nebraska defensively under Tony White has faced. Sans Michigan, if you want to go there from last year. I think defense is ready to play. I think defense plays well. I think Tommy Hill is closer to 100% than he was against Rutgers. They wouldn't put him out there and mess like they did against Illinois if he wasn't healthy. I think Nebraska defensively plays really, really well today, and they find a way to win on the road 24-20.
Ooh, a field goal. 24.
So I think Nebraska will go 1 of 2 with field goals today.
But one.
Yeah. So I also think if Nebraska has a chance at some point in this game, if it's early, to try a long field goal just to see, they will take that opportunity just to see where they're at. A long field goal that would not just completely change the game, but it's got to be early in the contest. But this is another thing, guys. Who do you feel better about if they fall behind? We haven't seen Indiana. Nebraska really hasn't trailed much at all. What if you fall behind by more than a field goal or a touchdown? I
like Nebraska's 2-minute drill propensity. They've shown the ability to get in rhythm and go that route. I like Nebraska with that opportunity, but don't fall behind, because I think this thing could crater. Right, you get behind by a touchdown and then turn it over. Indiana will try and pour it on you.
So I think that's a conditional question. Because for Indiana, if Indiana, if the RPO game is eliminated, if the threat of the run is eliminated and you force Indiana into just straight drop back, they haven't had to do that at all this year. They have not had to do that once. Doesn't mean they can't do it, but we haven't seen it. And so if Nebraska can get them into that kind of game, I don't trust Indiana in that scenario.
Well, is Nebraska
if they're able to keep people off balance, I would take Indiana.
Is Nebraska a better version of themselves against a team that can run it and throw it? Are they a better version of themselves versus what they saw and didn't do against Illinois?
Hey, would you guys feel differently with your score predictions if this game was in Lincoln?
Yes.
Okay, just checking. That's why I'm not. I mean, I think I would feel the same way, but I'm the only one on the quad box that took Nebraska.
I took Nebraska.
Elijah and I are going to eat well, so we'll come over to Schmitty's house and you can cook for us.
All right, I will.
And we'll let Mark wait on us.
T-bone.
We'll put a steak and a beer on it. How about that?
Yeah,
throw the steak like a frisbee. Don't wear white. I'm going to throw the steak like a frisbee at you.
This will have to be the best game that a Matt Rule team in Nebraska has played to win today, to get out of Bloomington.
Yep.
And it would be a huge win. It would put Nebraska in the rankings, and it would show you that they passed the eye test and they're on the right path.
Yeah, bowl eligibility, 7 games in.
The worst scenario is lack of across-the-board speed and depth at skill talent gets exposed today. That would be the worst-case scenario.
I will also say this is out there, and this is thinking way too far ahead, but if Nebraska can beat Indiana in Bloomington, they can hang with Ohio State. I'll just say that. They can hang with them. I'm not saying they're going to –
between the years, you're going to feel way better about yourself.
That's what I'm saying.
We'll be in Columbus next week.
I can't go to talk about Ohio State yet, but I don't know. They have a weird vibe. Nebraska has a weird vibe this week about just reminding people that we're still here. But now they got to go prove it. You do not want to have, oh boy, here we go again.
Well, and I think part of the confidence comes from they should be confident. For one more thing here.
Gary had a really nice little thought there to end the show, and then Mark goes, one more thing.
Just one more thing. But defensively for Nebraska, for as much as, that's what we do is we poke holes. We look at ways for Nebraska to get better. We, nitpick the hell out of everything. It's a 1 hour and 45-minute show. What do you get? But defensively, Nebraska, even their games that we've considered bad aren't. They're not bad. Like
they've won.
By any objective measure, though, Nebraska's not getting rolled up on by anybody. Right? Like, honestly, Illinois was like, oh, God, defensive, what an atrocity. Well, they let one guy leak out in overtime, basically. And their quarterback had the game of his life. And it still didn't put up great
until the Purdue game.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. Defensively, Nebraska's been salty. And now if you give 2 weeks for Tony White to prepare, that is a vote of confidence for today. I don't know.
Well,
Tony's side of the ball needs help today. Let's see if he gets it.
Yeah. After Illinois, Matt Rule wanted Tony White to get out of his comfort zone.
Yeah.
Not bad the last 2 games. After the special teams punting debacle, even though Nebraska had the punter of the week in the Big Ten and had 2 punts blocked, which has never, ever happened again and probably would never, ever will happen again. Matt Rule took more of a vested hands-on with special teams. We'll see what a difference it makes today. Not necessarily on personnel, like new kicker, long snapper, short snapper, all of that stuff, but more on their coverage schemes and their blocking schemes.
Charles brings up a good point, by the way. Test their diminutive. Hold on.
No, this is a good one. We're keeping this one.
Yeah,
up.
you got a 5'8" and a 6 foot corner. Yeah.
Oh, speaking of defensive backs, is Tommy Hill, Sierra Wright, if those guys are on the field together, is that the best corner duo in the Big Ten? Am I drinking the Sierra Wright Kool-Aid a little bit too much?
It's pretty damn good.
Ohio State may argue.
Sierra Wright has answered the bell. It's like Sierra Wright has answered the bell. He's been outstanding. They've targeted him, and it doesn't work.
Well, and I think a direct benefit in that. And Elijah, I like the path you're on. Tommy Hill back today helps out Buford a lot. Buford is going to be at a position where he's more comfortable playing.
Yep.
Yeah, he's better at safety. Yeah, there's no question. But in terms of the DBs, diminutive DBs, is that right? We got some smaller guys versus Nair versus Banks, who are 6'4", right? Fedoni's got block him out with his tattoos.
Well, you got to you're going to bring the pass rush. I mean, the next 2 weeks will be the best pass rush that Nebraska has seen.
Spring game, baby.
Yeah, you got to keep Kamara out of the backfield.
Sharpie will holler tomorrow morning with the Average Joe Sports Show podcast at 10:30. The live pod. Sound good?
Let's go, boys.
When do I get my guest invite?
Well, pop in tomorrow.
I'm qualified.
Pop in tomorrow.
Qualified. Bingo.
I don't care.
We'll have a fivesome. The numbers don't actually add up, but you might have to sit on the side.
Is it the whole how long is the
Craig's gonna have to watch? Is that what you're telling him?
You just let me into the. I feel like keep me muted.
Elijah's gonna go jump in front of a bus right now.
Yeah, we can end the show now, huh?
Yeah. Like and subscribe.
Man.
Hail Varsity YouTube, Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter, KFOR Facebook and Twitter. Real Red Reaction at 2:30 today, and we'll get rolling. Sharpie, appreciate you. One more thing, Mark.
Yeah, one more thing, Gary. Since you're connected to both hockey and University of Nebraska Omaha, I'm going to the Augustana game tonight.
Yeah.
What do we know about UNO hockey? Who am I watching for? I know they got a transfer defenseman.
Simon Licozzi is one of the best. Simon Licozzi is one of the best goaltenders in college hockey. But right now they're having trouble putting the puck in the net. They got beat last night 2-1. Augustana's second-year program head coach is a former Lincoln Star, Garrett Raboyne, war number 10, played on the blue line. Go Garrett. Augustana's not bad. They won last night 2-1, got a late goal. So got to win tonight. But Omaha has a great goalie.
And on another note, how about this?
Great goalie.
Nebraska puts Jeter Wordley, Lincoln East product from Michigan for Husker baseball. That guy is great. One of my favorites to umpire for. Incredibly talented. I don't want to say better than his brother because that is probably, I don't know. You never know with projection, but that dude is really, really good at baseball.
Jalen's brother. Here's how good that kid is, by the way. Worthley, as a junior, started over a senior who's also going to play Division I college baseball, right? So, a Division I college baseball recruit could not start on his own high school team because Worthley, a junior, was playing ahead of him.
Hey, that's Rob. Hey,
how about that Lincoln East?
I saw a little bit of the red white series. Man, they're going to be salty on the mound. Rob Childress has got things rolling. I mean, they're giving him the goods. Jeter Worthley though
Who jumped out?
Well, Mason McConaughey looks really, really good. Horn looks good. They have a plethora of arms of guys that can dabble in the mid 90s. Man, we keep saying this. Maybe they have Drew Christo fixed. Look good.
That'd be big.
He was pretty well fixed last year. He had a couple rough outings.
At the end of the year, he was. Yeah. No, he
had more good outings than he had bad.
Yeah, Nebraska baseball, building on last year, they're in a really, really good spot. But boy, they are going to have some defined weekend starters. Mason McConaughey, I think, Sears was so great last year as the ace, McConaughey will slide right in there, and then everybody will fall in line. Yeah, baseball's going to be fun coming up in the spring, and they also changed the Big Ten tournament. There's going to be 12 teams here. They're going to play 4 pods of 3 teams.
That's awesome. I like. Can't wait to see Jeske and
schedule
Newton
is
back as well.
Awesome this year too.
2 young kids.
Yeah, it's a schedule that is built when you play in the Big Ten. That if you pick off some of them top teams, you're going to be in a position to be considered to host a regional.
Good.
Nebraska's going to play LSU this year in a tournament. They're going to play.
Well, and they're
Oregon State.
It hasn't been announced yet, but
mistaken.
it has been proposed that MLB thing they're doing that Nebraska and Tennessee will play. Tennessee has been dragging their feet on being involved in that, but they would like to have Tennessee and Nebraska matched up if it comes to fruition.
Be good.
That's
Well,
a We Won Bama equivalent.
Yeah,
that's a We Won Bama football equivalent right there. You know, you're just like, I don't know if we want the Vols right now.
See where you're at.
We'll see.
the Vols don't want.
Well, there are people that are saying you don't want the Hoosiers today. We're about to find out. To go, who's your daddy?
Well, Captain, the ceiling fan is off.
Hey, that was a good place to end the show, and then Schmitty goes to the ceiling fan. Gary has had 3 different times today where he's had a banger of a line that's like, what a place to end the show. And somebody goes, one more thing.
All right. Fellas, appreciate you. And appreciates all of you checking us out in the stream with the weekend edition of Hail Varsity. Sharpie, we'll talk to you tomorrow morning, bud.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy the game.
You too, bud. Kraynak, enjoy yourself, brother. Appreciate you.
All right, man. All right.
And
appreciate y'all.
Godspeed. Check out Animal House at halftime. Elijah, we'll talk to you on Real Red Reaction. Thanks for tuning in. And
that's your plug. Immediately following kickoff, right back wherever you found this show, find the Real Red Reaction show.
Yep.
Chris Schmidt, myself. We'll also have JP, Bill Hooks, and Bill Dolman, and Jeff Moats. So a loaded crew.
All right.
Loaded crew for the Real Red Reaction show. So you
Kraynak will get you an invite tomorrow morning.
Let me know. Let me know. I'll see if I can make it. See if it fits
Enjoy. See if Nebraska can get it done today.
All right. Godspeed.